Welcome to Redtastic. Story 1. So here's the backstory. My girlfriend, 26 female, has a younger brother, 21 male, who got kicked out of his parents' place recently. I don't know the full reason, but it seems serious. My girlfriend and her brother are very close, so she pushed for me to let him stay with me. She even promised to cover his share of the rent and utilities until he finds a job. My girlfriend and I don't live together. She's in an apartment with roommates, so she couldn't take him in herself. I didn't love the idea, as her brother doesn't have the best track record. He's not in school, he doesn't have a job, and he was kicked out of college for some serious violation. But I agreed to help for her sake. Things started going wrong recently when he began inviting his girlfriend over. At first, I didn't mind since she would just stay a few hours in the evening. But last night, she showed up with an overnight bag and her support dog, planning to stay the night. I wasn't okay with this. I don't know her well. I didn't agree to her staying over. And I definitely didn't want a dog in my apartment, so I told her she had to leave. That's when her brother tried to argue with me. I didn't have the patience for that. So I told him to leave too if he didn't like the rules. They both left. Now my girlfriend is losing it. She's furious, saying her brother isn't answering his phone and that I'm responsible if anything happens to him. She's completely ignoring my point of view, that I never agreed to him turning my apartment into a hangout spot for him and his girlfriend, let alone having a dog stay over. Frankly, I don't care where he is. He's a grown man and his own parents don't seem too worried either. In fact, his dad called him to say he's glad I finally came to my senses and got rid of him. But even with his dad's support, I'm feeling a bit anxious about the fallout. My girlfriend isn't talking to me right now and I don't know how to move forward. Am I in the wrong here? Update. So, her brother finally reached out to my girlfriend. He's staying with a friend now. But despite that, my girlfriend is still upset with me, and she keeps putting the blame on me for why he couldn't get his life back on track this time around. I tried explaining that I don't feel it's fair for her to expect me to take responsibility for him. He's a grown adult, and his own parents aren't helping either, so why should I? But she's still taking his side completely, like I'm somehow the one who derailed his life. When I told her I didn't appreciate how one-sided she's being, she completely shut down on me. I'm honestly feeling like this could be the end of our relationship. It doesn't feel right to be held responsible for all this, when I was already going out of my way to help him for her sake. At this point, I think we might need to take a break to figure out where we stand. You're not in the wrong here, OP. You have nothing to be sorry for. You were doing your girlfriend a favor, and I'm glad you stood up for yourself. Her brother was trying to test you in your own house by bringing his girlfriend overnight without asking for your permission. And I'm glad you immediately said no and laid boundaries. It's not your fault he doesn't like being told no. And it's not your fault he decided to leave and not contact his family to let them know about his whereabouts. Your girlfriend is totally wrong for blaming his behavior on you and not seeing your side here. She needs to stop coddling him and let him grow. Story 2. Am I the a-hole for asking my husband's sister to consider being a surrogate for us? My husband and I have been trying for pregnancy for years now. And to cut a long story short, it seems as though it will never be a possibility. It took a long time to come to terms with, but we've gradually got there. Our entire family is aware of the journey we've been on and how much it meant to us. With that in mind, my husband and I came to his sister, Sarah, with a proposal. Sarah is in her early 30s, unmarried, and vocally against having children of her own. Despite this, we thought she might be open to the idea of a surrogate pregnancy on our behalf, given she would not have to be involved in raising the child personally. My husband is extremely close to his family, and the idea of the entire process of surrogacy Being contained to his blood felt extremely important to him. With that closeness in mind, we did not feel it was out of order to ask this sort of question. We invited Sarah over for dinner and at the end of it laid out our request. We told her we had been saving over the years and would be willing to pay her as much as a regular surrogate would be paid. A pretty hefty fee, so she would be able to take time off from work if it was required. Help her out with everything she needed, plus we had no expectations that she must help raise the child just because she carried it. We told her why it was important to us and how much it would mean, and asked her to have an open mind about it. Sarah exploded at us. She said we were both out of our minds for making such a request, extremely selfish, and that we had no respect for her disinterest in children. She actually left early. Right now, she's refusing to take calls from us and even went as far as to ask my husband's parents to tell us both to not contact her until she decides to initiate it herself. My husband's parents are sympathetic to us, but say that we should have kept in mind Sarah's difficulties. My parents think she's behaving awfully. Most of my friends are on my side, but a few have said that it was a bit rude request given everyone knows how much Sarah hates kids. It's really weighing on my mind and I honestly never expected this kind of outcome. She literally blocked us on every platform she could. Are we really the ones behaving like an a-hole? Your parents are a-holes for saying Sarah behaved awfully, and you and your husband are a-holes for not laying any background work for this. You just invited her to dinner, fed her, and treated her nicely, only to drop the bump and tell her you want something that big from her. No wonder she behaved the way she did. Poor girl, she probably thought you guys wanted to spend time with her. Asking someone who you know doesn't want to have children to have your baby is not a good idea. Sarah is not an a-hole here, and it seems there is more to her just not wanting kids. And if you had taken time to do your research, you would know this. Now for some comments. You're the a-hole. Sarah doesn't want children, so asking her to give birth for you was very inappropriate. You seem focused on how much it will mean to you, not what it would mean to her. You are so focused on wanting a baby that you are not being open-minded about the fact that Sarah doesn't want a child, and that includes the pregnancy and birthing part. It also seems like you have then gone and had a moan to your parents for her reaction. I'm not surprised Sarah doesn't want to talk to either of you. She's a person, not an incubator. You're the a-hole. Your desire for a child does not outweigh your sister-in-law's desire to not have children, and it seems both are well-known positions in the family. It may seem reasonable to keep it in the family, and we're trying to create a win-win, but really it isn't. You essentially said to her, since you're not using your womb, mind if we borrow it for 9 months? Did you ever consider why she doesn't want children of her own? It's actually beyond rude the more I consider it. Yes, I am sympathetic to your plight, but have only one more word for you: adoption. You're the a-hole. You knew she's vocally against having children of her own, but you approached her anyway without first finding out how far that extends. That you had to prep her lavishly for the task suggests you knew you were asking for something out of bounds. Your language suggests you barely respect her. Why were you even talking about this with her and your husband's parents and with your parents? And now you've damaged her relationship with others who shouldn't be involved, namely your parents. Wait until she comes to you, and when she does, apologize sincerely and profusely for not respecting her. Story 3. Am I the a-hole for saying that I wouldn't mind having a wife who stays at home, cooks, cleans, etc.? I'll start with a bit of background about me. I'm highly educated and successful. I earned a doctorate a few years ago and subsequently got a job making $125,000 a year. I eventually decided to quit that job and go back to school for a second doctorate that will, if all goes according to plan, increase my earning potential to more than triple that amount within the next decade. My ex-girlfriend, whom I dated for more than 5 years, was also highly educated. She only had 1 doctorate but completed years of postgraduate training that enabled her to work in the top 1% of the field. While this was a benefit in many ways, example being able to connect with someone who was intellectually on my level, it was also surprisingly challenging in the sense that our demanding schedules often conflicted. It was a situation in which I would suggest, for example, that we go to an event in our city, but she would have to fly out of town for a conference. Or she would want to take a trip, but I had obligations and couldn't get off. I'm currently dating a woman who is certainly not stupid, but isn't quite on my level or my ex-girlfriend's level. She only holds a bachelor's degree and has bounced around a number of different types of employment since finishing college. The other night, she was complaining about not knowing what direction she wants to take her life and feeling like she's just floating along. I decided to open up to her and admit that since my profession makes good money but eats up an exorbitant amount of my time, I honestly wouldn't mind having a housewife. Coming home to a clean living space, a home-cooked meal waiting for me, the laundry done, and the dishes washed sounds lovely. It's not like we would need the money with my salary, and she could spend her extra time on her hobbies instead of slogging through jobs about which she isn't passionate. I'm vehemently opposed to having children, so childcare wouldn't be an issue here. Or she could get a part-time job just to have something to do. It seems like a win-win to me in the sense that whenever I have the time outside of work to have fun with the money for which I've worked so hard, my partner would be available so we could enjoy our leisure time to the fullest extent. She got upset, called me a misogynist, and has been distant for the past couple of days. I don't understand what I did to warrant that reaction. I never said or even implied that I hate women, and I never even said that I feel that women shouldn't pursue careers if they choose to do so. I simply said that if she felt happy with the idea, then I wouldn't mind it if she'd rather not work, which is a considerate way of recognizing her frustrations with the jobs she's held and proposing a mutually beneficial solution. All she had to do was say, "Thanks, but that would make me feel even less satisfied than I do now," and I would have dropped it. Thoughts? Now for some comments. You're the a-hole. By saying this to someone, you come across as incredibly arrogant. You're asking a woman you're not even married to be your housekeeper because you think your working career is more important than hers. Regardless of whether it is, this is a very belittling thing to do to anyone. Maybe you should use your big brain and salary to hire a professional cleaner. You're the a-hole, and your girlfriend should run for the effing hills. I would not advise anyone to put themselves in the financially vulnerable position of being a stay-at-home spouse to an arrogant a-hole who already thinks he's superior to them just because he got too many degrees. Also, what happens if things don't go as planned with your degree and projected future earnings? Life is wild and unpredictable. I hope that realization humbles you in an impactful way. You're the a-hole. Has this not-on-your-level woman given any indication that she would be fulfilled with being your live-in maid with some cute hobbies? There is nothing wrong with being a housewife, aspiring to be one, wanting one, etc. But you made this less about her actual needs and wants and more about what you want. A lot of women don't care about how great a potential provider you are, especially if there are no kids. We want to be challenged and fulfilled.